Are you having trouble when you come home from work and you're just taking home all this sort of negative energy? You can't really just relax when you get home. You feel maybe a bit overwhelmed. Maybe you actually work out of town. And this is something that happens to a lot of people, that they're so focused with their work out of town, and then they get on a plane, they come home, and it takes them a couple days to just balance back, with getting used to being at home, and it's almost overwhelming, and it's exhausting, and like they've gone through a huge time zone change or something, and they've got jet lag. But they don't have that. They're just taking on this sort of energy from the role of what they're doing at work, and they're bringing that home, and they're having trouble segueing, they're having trouble with a quick transition back at home. So I want to talk about that today. It could be somebody that works out of town, or just basically every day going to work, and you have trouble with, bringing home the sort of energy from that coworker. Maybe there's some stress at work, just sort of slowing your brain down, getting your brain off of the work mode and getting back to home mode. And so I want to talk about that today. A little bit about that, and how you can do some really simple steps to make, I think, for most people, a really big difference on that. So you're able to transition and get back home and feel really, really good, and make a much more comfortable transition much more quickly, and make it more deliberate with an intention. My name is Arnie Peterson from Awareness and Health. I'm a mindfulness-based counseling hypnotherapist from Victoria, BC, and I work with people online and in person to help them with all kinds of things like this, with anxiety, negative thoughts, and OCD, and to be able to manage their energy when they're around other people, or transitioning from one place to the other, or goal setting, things like that. So let's get to it. So you're at work. Now, if you're working out of town, it's much, much bigger. But it's the same thing when you're working a job, in the same city. So you're there, you're working, and you're sort of acting within this role. You're the professional at work, you're an employee or whatever you are, whatever position you are, whatever you do, and you act within that job. And so you're being a specific person, a specific role, playing the part. Then when you go home, you've kind of been really focused doing that intently for many, many hours. And so it's really hard to just go from that to being at home, back to your normal self at home. It takes a while to transition, but it makes sense because you spent hours and hours and hours doing that. Now think if you were working out of town and you spent, it was really long hours, and you're actually, there for a week or something, or 2 weeks. That's a lot more time to get used to being in that role. So you're acting within that role of the professional person there. And so then you come home, and it's really hard to change back to just your normal self. And so I want to talk about how we can fix that. And so it's all about intentions. Now what we focus on is what we expand. And so it's like a magnifying glass. When you sort of hold it in the sun, you can focus that energy, pinpoint that energy down to a really fine spot, and you can actually burn paper or light paper even, and start a fire. And by doing that, it's kind of like that. Where you focus your attention is important. Now, if you just randomly come home, you're not thinking about it, you just fall into the same old habits of getting stressed, getting overwhelmed, getting exhausted, taking home energy from that person at the office, or just the general job overall. And so when we're operating unconsciously, when we're not setting any intention, just the old default program takes over. And the way we always felt, that's how we're going to just feel, because that's the way we're used to feeling. So if you set an intention before, you finish work and stop, take some time and go, okay, I've finished work, I'm going to let it go. And tomorrow or whenever I come back, I can pick up this roll again. Imagine taking that roll off, hanging it up on the hook, and being complete with it. Thank the day. Think of things you're grateful for the day, but make it very clear the day is now complete. See yourself being complete and saying, now I'm going to just sort of open up, take a few breaths, feel my body when I get back in my car. Or if you're working out of town, maybe you have a plane ride and you can actually sit on the plane and ground yourself, do a bit of a meditation, and be present with where you are. And then visualize going home and putting on that role, that you're going home and you're putting on sort of the role of your regular everyday self. When you take that time to complete the one and close the door, imagine you're closing the door or hanging the cloak or the roll up on the hook, like an actor doing a play. They'll wear the clothes and they'll play the role, but then when they're done, they'll take off the role and they hang it up on the hook, and they're not actually being the person that was acting on the stage anymore. They've hung that role up. So you want to close the door, and to that role you want to hang it up, and then when you go home, you're open to be yourself. Now take a bit of extra time on the way home or just before to envision in your mind, to imagine, set an intention of getting home, see yourself walking in the door, if somebody's going to greet you, and see what that's, imagine that greeting in your mind, that feels good. It's nice to see the person. If you're working out of town, maybe somebody's picking you up, and maybe it's more of a big deal. And so imagine that. Imagine feeling good after. Think about not what you did at work, but putting that aside, and then thinking about something at home in your personal life that you can talk about instead. When you do that, when you take that role off and you transition from one to the other, you're not taking energy from one to the other. Your mind's not so focused for 8 hours on this, and then of course it's going to bring it home with you because you've been thinking about it for so long. And so this way you can actually stop that energy of focusing in that role, and then you can set an intention for being at home, and then you'll be able to segue from one to the other much more smoothly, much more easily, and more quickly. It'll be a lot more gentle of a transition. And for some people, that can be a very abrupt transition to be maybe some job where they're working really, really focused for many hours, and then they come home. That can be really weird and really difficult, where the energy is completely different. And if you take on energy from other people at work, this is a really good way to sort of cut that off and leave that at work and let it go, taking that role off. So if this makes sense to you and it works for you, great. Give it a go and try it, and set that intention to take off the role and complete work, put it aside, and then you go home, and then setting that intention on the way home or before you go in the door to meet and greet, your home life, and set that intention to open that space up inside of you. I think you'll find this will be really helpful. And so if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it, pass it along. And also check out my YouTube channel. I've got a lot of videos on there now of a lot of topics if you have challenges with emotional challenges, stress, anxiety. But I've got a couple self-empowerment programs. One is a 2-week self-empowerment series that'll help you to navigate through challenging emotions and a lot of things like this. And the other one is quite a longer, more intensive program. It's 6 sections, and it's a self-help series. So they're both on there, and I think you'll get a lot from them. And so I hope you like this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and I wish you a wonderful rest of your day.